Good evening. Welcome to Bellefonte Borough Council Work Session. No council action, making motions, or approvals will be taken during this work session. Tonight, first, we have our Property Maintenance Code discussion.
Good evening. I'm Walt Schneider. I am your building code official. I will be more than happy to discuss anything you'd like with regards to your property maintenance things. What I will encourage you to do, though, is if you have questions as we go along, stop me. Okay? So what I wanted to start with this evening is just a brief overview of, we really have three areas that we cover under what we typically call property maintenance. The first is items that are addressed by the use of the property. So if somebody has chosen to do something that is non-conforming with the overall use of the property, this is something that really is a zoning issue and is handled by your zoning officer. The second is the items that I call grass, weeds, and sidewalk kind of items. So what we're talking about there are complaints that are typically regarding problems with the sidewalk. So we've got slabs of the sidewalk that are no longer in line because something has shifted, something has moved, so we've got a trip hazard. Something is not being taken care of properly, for example, in the planting strip. We've got tree issues, those kinds of things. Somebody's not mowing their grass properly. Those are items that are handled by the borough's ordinance enforcement officer. Then we get into the items that revolve around the building itself. So we're talking about either maintenance items where somebody isn't maintaining the building as they should. So for example, the exterior of the building has been let go and we get water intrusion, or we've got siding that's falling off, or the roof is not being maintained, those kind of things. Somebody is storing materials against the building or on the porches of the building. Those are items that are all handled through the Center Region Building Safety and Property Maintenance Code by my office. The person that we have in Bellefonte on a daily basis is Rob Semyon. He does rental housing inspection, he does fire and life safety inspections, and then he also handles these types of complaints directly. From a backup standpoint, myself as the agency director is available at any time to assist, as well as Rob's direct report, which is Mike Faustina. He's the senior inspector for the existing structures group. When anybody gets a complaint, the first thing I would encourage you to do, so that you're not trying to triage where those go, is I would encourage you to reach out to Gina, and she is well-versed in what items fall into kind of which bucket. So that way you're not trying to figure out, hey, should I call Walt? Should I call Gina? You know, where should this go? Reach out to Gina with an email or a phone call with as much detail as you can give us. I will tell you that our opinion is we do not give up, even under right to know. It's a complaint, and so we're not required to give the name of the complainant. All right, they're all anonymous. And at that point in time, we can look into what the complaint is and what the problem is. One thing I will say is that everybody wants, I believe a well-versed gentleman had said to me, everybody wants them done in TV time. And you know, you turn on the soap opera and they address the issue in the first half hour. Unfortunately, these types of issues aren't necessarily addressed in the first half hour. One of the things we have is we have to provide due process. So the first thing we have to do is look into the complaint. Is there a grounds behind the complaint? What's going on? We typically are trying to deal with folks with a level of customer service. While I know it can be frustrating to the neighbors or the people driving by, but one of the things we want to do is we want to be able to talk with and deal with folks at a personal level and be able to let them know what's going wrong and give them an opportunity to correct it. Customer service, just like you would want to be treated, we want to treat folks the same way. We want this to be a pleasant place to be and not have that feeling of, oh my God, somebody's always looking over my shoulder. That said, if they don't follow through, we will typically give them a second chance. The first chance is usually we have to look at what's wrong. We have to give them a reasonable time frame to correct the violation. So for example, depending on what it is, if it's something that requires concrete work or work that might be temperature sensitive and you find out about it in December, that time frame may be longer than if it's a issue that is similar that is found in June. So for example, if you tell me I've got a concrete pad to replace in a sidewalk in June, that's a much easier and quicker fix than it is when you tell me about it in December. What we try and do is we try and work with people, and as long as they're making forward progress in a reasonable fashion, we try and keep them moving in that fashion. That said, when they stop moving in a reasonable fashion moving forward, then unfortunately we have to kind of pull out some of the other tools in the toolbox. Those involve additional letters of notice of violation with shorter and shorter time frames. And at the far end of the spectrum, we may have to deal with going to court and filing citations in court and try and coerce somebody to move towards resolution of the problem. So that's a basic overview. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have or hear any concerns that you may have.
What are some of the examples of recent property maintenance code violations that Bellefonte Borough has had? That our code enforcement officer or Gina could handle?
So an example of one that we're actually working very well together, and I'm crossing my fingers that we are getting close to resolution based on my discussions with their attorney today, was a property over near the baseball fields. I would.
That's been going on for a while.
We have actually, I had a long discussion with their attorney today, and I am anticipating having, right now, we're anticipating having building permits in place by April. We are hoping to see this week a design for at least a fast review where the entire building will be brought into compliance with respect to those items that are no longer on the property, bringing all the structures onto the property and regrading and taking care of the problems.
Pavilion that's built to the.
Yep.
Outside of that, it's been going on for the 2.5 years that I've been on council. What's another example of something that wouldn't go outside of our code enforcement or Gina?
So another example is, one that comes to mind is the gatehouse for the academy. The gatehouse for the academy was originally a rental house. When we came in and started the rental housing program here, that when the Center Region Code Administration took it over, we had done the inspection for that property. There was a handful of minor items that needed to be corrected. We gave them a correction notice. The owner of the property decided at that point that they didn't want to make those corrections, and at the end of the lease, terminated the lease, and the individual who was living there moved out. The property has unfortunately fallen into some disrepair, and we currently have a notice of violation with the property owner indicating that they need to correct the items to bring the exterior of the structure back into compliance. and make the building watertight and sound and to protect the property. So that's another example of a property here in Bellefonte that we're working on.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you mentioned that if somebody makes a complaint about a specific property, then it's looked into. In just the course of being in town, if your inspector observes a property that is in disrepair but nobody has complained about it, will he follow up on that or wait until somebody complains?
No, we are actively looking. It's not like we're trying to feather things out, but our goal is, and we follow basically the attitude that you want us to have because you're council and we work for you. We realize that the maintenance of the properties in the borough is important because as people come in and out of the borough, we want the borough to look nice. We want the borough buildings to be in good repair because that sends, an attitude of that this is a nice place to be and wanting to be. And so he will follow up and work with the appropriate party, be it Gina or ordinance enforcement, if they're not ours. So we work together. Similarly, if ordinance enforcement or Gina find things, we will also kind of get the word from them as well, saying, hey, I was out looking at this and happened to see this. Can you take care of this?
Okay, thank you.
Our pleasure.
Hey, Walt, what about with vehicles? You want to do it for me?
No.
Is Bellefonte responsible for vehicles left in the front yard, backyard, where they may be? Or does that go on your side?
So unlicensed vehicles would be something that would be handled either from the ordinance enforcement side or Bellefonte Police Department. Now that said, if you have all the auto parts for your vehicle and you stick them on your porch, we'll take care of all the pieces that are up against the building and around the building. So we have the ability to take care of those things that are directly affecting the building. And what I've found in the past is a lot of times it may be a joint effort between multiple of us dealing with something to be able to come to a resolution with somebody.
You've talked about exteriors. Are you going to also address interiors of buildings?
So from a commercial building standpoint, we do fire inspections on all of the commercial structures in the borough.
Okay.
That's where we basically look at the maintenance of the interior of the structure and maintaining the building in a sound fashion and a safe fashion with respect to fire safety as well as structural stability. When we talk about private residences, we have no jurisdiction physically inside the structure unless we're talking about structural stability or the soundness of the structure as a whole. So for example, if we drive by and we notice that the roof is truly caving in, well, it's an interior item and just because the roof hasn't penetrated yet, we can then ask somebody to do a study and be able to correct the problem. With respect to rental housing, we are in the properties every 3 years, and if we get a complaint, we can be in them more often than that 3-year time frame. So for example, and there have been at times when we get complaints from the tenants against the landlords, and we've also had times when we've had complaints from the landlords against the tenants. At which point in time, again, from our standpoint, what we try and do is figure out what's actually going on, who is responsible for the problem, and how do we get correction made. Our goal really is compliance. The last thing we really want to do is go down the road of having to kind of get the tools out of the toolbox with respect to citations and those kinds of things. Because at the end of the day, we're spending money on something that they can be putting money into correcting the problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to pull an example that's just outside the borough, but I think this might affect other things, walls, retaining walls, the resting ground for the Quaker Cemetery is outside the borough. We dealt with this on council many, many times. Those kinds of things also happen in the borough. How is that handled?
So one of the tough things to deal with in the borough has been retaining structures. Because of the topography of the borough, they were put in many cases, over the course of a lot of years, may not have been put in properly, may not have been maintained properly. So for example, over the years, the topography has changed and we get water now sloping towards a retaining wall and causing a failure. One of the big challenges is in the borough, they haven't always been put on one person's property, in which case it becomes, you know, a little bit more delicate to deal with, and many times what you're dealing with is both parties and trying to resolve who owns the property and be able to get them completely fixed. Sometimes is going to be a joint effort. I'm dealing with another one right now in the borough actively where the correction of the problem is being done between two commercial buildings in the borough because the effect of one problem is being caused by the other, but all the work has to be done on the other property. So they're going to have to, as property owners, work together to resolve the problem. And we're seeing positive movement to that. And this was something we originally saw in early December. And now we're starting to see kind of forward movement on with the design professionals involved in trying to come up with a creative solution to a very difficult problem. So in some cases, it's going to be having to try and work with two property owners to work together. And that can be difficult, as you well know. If there are no other...
When did you start doing property maintenance for us, just out of curiosity?
I believe it will be 11 years this July.
When the building stopped burning down.
So,
That's what I would say.
Along those lines, you know, we've had a couple of small building fires. And Walt, I wanted to thank you because a lot of people don't know what you do. You call me every time there's a fire and let me know that the building is secure, you know, the people got out safe, they have a place to stay for the night and so on. You call me, you know, whatever time of the day or night it is, and I appreciate that. You take care of that because otherwise we don't really have people 24/7 to take care of, you know, when something happens like that. So I just wanted to say thank you for looking out for us and taking care of citizens when those terrible things happen. So appreciate it.
it's our pleasure. We have an inspector on call 24/7, 365. In addition to that inspector, we have both access to the senior inspector for existing structures, Mike Faustina, as well as myself with my background to be able to bring to bear anything we have from a tool standpoint and deal with the problem. Whenever we know there's a fire or the fire department dispatches us to respond post-fire, we are here to deal with those kinds of things, be able to let them as the volunteers get back to the fire station, get their apparatus back in play, and be able to deal with then the tenants and the landlords to be able to resolve the issue as best we can and quickly and effectively as we can. And again, I make sure the manager is informed as to what's going on, be it if we have somebody displaced or the resolution, you know, hopefully it's something small and we were able to resolve it within an hour, 2 hours after the fact. But it's something we, you know, truly feel is important to be able to bring as a tool for you. And we really appreciate being part of the team here in Bellefonte. We really enjoy it and look forward to a long, fruitful relationship between us. If you have no other questions, always Manager knows how to get me 24/7, 365. And always happy if there's something else you'd like, I'm always happy to come over and meet with you and do whatever we can to continue to make the borough a wonderful place to live.
Thank you, Walt, very much. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity tonight.
Yeah, we can take a I'm sorry. We'll take a short break and start again at 7 o'clock. We'll reconvene the work session, and we'd like to welcome Mr. Rick Jacobs from the stage at Talleyrand Group.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having us. I just wanted to bring you up to date on what's going on with the Stage at Talleyrand project. It's been a while since we've been in front of the full council, and we have things to report, and I wanted to make sure everybody's on the same page in terms of what we've been doing and what we see coming up. First, I guess I don't need to introduce a number of people from our committee. You probably know Tom Wilson and Kay Custobatter, Tom Bathgate, Mike Desmond, and Tally Fisher. I think that's everybody. Yeah. And they may have some comments as well. So I'm going to just click through a chronology of activities. I believe a package was put in your wherever you get your information about 2 weeks ago. And this is pretty much just a rehashing of all that, and I'll make it quick. I want to show you a little bit about the designs we're looking at, and then we've had some ideas about a new location, given other things that are going on in the park, and what we see as next steps. So in December of 2021, so now we're going back over 3 years, we had a cooperative agreement between the Stage Committee, Downtown Bellefonte, Inc., and the Bellefonte Borough, signed by members of each, and we thought we were on our way. In May of 2022, after a competitive process, we hired HLA Architects as the architects for the project. And between May and July, we generated a bunch of different ideas, designs, and came up with a finalized vision, along with some cost estimates that our architect helped us develop. In July of 2022, we launched our fundraising efforts. We updated the stage plan and we shared it with Borough Council. And we submitted a grant with the Department of Community and Economic Development, and they awarded us $1 million for this project specifically. We had additional fundraising, reaching out to people, and we had about 50 donors, about $75,000 in private money, and that's about what we have right now when we had to stop raising money. In August of 2022, we had a fully updated budget, supporting materials prepared and distributed. We looked at the project and cut it down a little bit, and we got some feedback from people in the community that it might be too big. We had one person who called it a Taj Mahal, which we should only be so lucky to attract as many visitors as the Taj Mahal, but we didn't think it was, but we responded to that idea. And throughout the project, we have said that we will raise money and we will have 10% or more of that budget set aside for the maintenance and the running of the stage. So if we raise $2.5 million, which was our original target, $250,000 would be set in that fund, and it will draw interest and it will be added to over the years. We formed a formal organization. We have 2 committee chairs. We have people who are in different roles within the committee. This isn't new to several of us on the committee. We've run organizations. We know how to do it. And at that time, we sent letters to the borough and to the water authority because there was some concern about having restrooms on that side of the park. So we wanted to see if there was a way to cooperatively fund those, but we didn't get a response from either group. October 2022, the council leased the former subway building to Pelican for 2 seasons, total of 19 months, thereby changing the previous agreement and changing our design as to what we were going to do. December of 2022, Bellefonte Borough Council got the new renderings along with new project estimates and comparison to the original concept. I might say as we were scaling down the project, we made sure that the stage would stay the same size because one of the ideas was to have the Bellefonte Community Band be able to play there, perhaps the Nittany Valley Symphony. So we didn't want to shrink the size of the stage, but we could shrink the size of the overall building. In March of 2023, we went out and got letters of support. We had a nice letter from the borough. Thank you, Ralph, and borough members. Other support letters were included in a package that was forwarded last month, and they come from the county commissioners, from Carrie Benninghoff, from various organizations, Downtown Bellefonte Incorporated, Talleyrand Park Committee, and some local people who support the project. In May of 2023, public announcement of the DCED grant. I think some of you were at that celebration at the Big Spring. It was great. It was a lot of energy in the room, and we thought we were off and running. Then in December of 2023, we received a document that said that before we could move forward, we would have to satisfy 12 different points. And we turned that over to our attorney, and it turns out that many of those points could not even be approached until the design was finalized, and the design couldn't be finalized until we knew exactly what parcel of land we were going to use. So one of the big sticking points was that we needed to clear the plan with PennDOT, and we did that. Our architect reached out to PennDOT. We have an email from PennDOT saying they're really not interested in this project because we're not changing the access that is on the road on Water Street into that turnaround. So PennDOT is not an issue in this. And the other issues, some of them we can deal with, but many of them we can't. And some of them we have dealt with. We can't deal with them until we get to a point where we have a final design. And I must say, underlying some of those was almost are you going to follow the law? Are you going to do all the steps that you're supposed to do when you build a facility? And of course we are. January 2024, we worked with Center County Commissioners to submit a grant request to Local Share, which is the gambling money in Pennsylvania. Center County has never gotten a single dollar from Local Share. We didn't get it. But this is the kind of grant, and I've been writing grants for 50 years now, it's the kind of thing that if you put it out once and they say no, that doesn't mean they'll say no the second time. And I do believe that some of that money went to the swimming pool. I'm not sure, but I know Center County got some money this time around. So maybe somebody can correct me on where it went. So we plan on doing that again. And also, very recently, we submitted a $300,000 grant request to Lowe's. The building organization has decided to invest, or they have for the last couple of years, invest in local projects. So at the leadership of Tom Bathgate, we put a request in for $300,000. That money will be awarded this summer and has to be spent by Thanksgiving. I already said about the PennDOT approval. We had May of 2024, so now we're a good ways, a couple of years into this. We suspended our fundraising effort because we couldn't be sure if and when we would build the stage. A little while later, we had an official 501c3 Friends of Talleyrand, and that is now in place. Before we were operating under DBI. And then in August of last year, the Water Authority informed us of their work to uncover the Big Spring and told us our project would have to be on hold. I might say that we had before we found this out, Doug and a couple people from the Water Authority, Tom Bathgate and I had breakfast at the Waffle Shop, and it was the beginning of July, and we thought that there was going to be an answer by the end of 2024. Now it doesn't look like there's an answer in sight. So right now we're just trying to figure out if and when we can do this project. So that was the original design. You're looking at the building from the Big Spring. That is an upgraded version of that little parking lot. The stage faces to your right. There's a covered space that we could hold events in to the left. We believe it would make a beautiful entrance and exit into Bellefonte. Since the Pelican building was taken out of play, that's it in blue, we decided to try a different rendering. This is a less expensive, smaller facility, still has the same stage space facing out on the figure 8 with all the grass, but nothing behind it. So it's just a one-sided building rather than a two-sided building. And the cost came down. This is what we really want to make clear, that given the uncertainty of the Big Spring project and the idea that wells might need to be drilled where we're anticipating the stage, that would be place number 1. We met with our architect and went over the park, and we proposed that, well, if we can't have that space in the spirit of working with the Water Authority, we could move the stage to the other side of the park. We'd still have the large expanse of lawn where people could sit. It's very close to the railroad bridge, the water. It has a distinct advantage of having more sound isolation away from the road, and it won't interfere with the plans for the Water Authority. So, we've been busy. It's been a very protracted process. We're all getting tired. We've tried to respond to all the issues that have been raised. We always wanted this to be a partnership. That's how we started it with that first agreement, Downtown Bellefonte, Inc., the Bellefonte Borough, and our committee. And we need to get to a final decision. We need to get an answer as to whether we're going to go ahead with this project. I say that because if we're lucky enough to get the Lowe's grant, that has to be spent by Thanksgiving of this year. The current $1 million grant will run out. It has a time frame, and that's the end of this year. So we really have to get underway very shortly to make it spend the money that we've already got in our pockets and get going to raise some more. So I'll stop there and take questions. And Joanne?
Yeah, when Tom first was a mayor, he and I walked around that area of the park trying to figure out where to place it. Initially, the thought was at your site number 2, and we decided at that point, after talking to several people, that we preferred it at the other end where site 1 is, because we'd had experience with trucks or coming in and going out and messing up the grounds. If there can be some way to make sure that we don't have ruts in the ground and having to have the borough regularly fix the ground, I don't see a problem, but I wonder if you've thought about that, or has that been discussed?
Well, we looked at that, and the walking track is actually big enough for most vehicles that would come in to bring equipment to the stage. We also, I mean, part of it, we might even want to purchase a golf cart to make it even easier. I've been I go to the park almost every day, and I watch borough trucks, not big ones, but come down that area. So I don't think it would be a problem. We like the first location. It does have the sound issue. And I guess if I had put it all together, that would be an easier location. But the second location has lots to recommend it. It is closer to the restrooms. It's easier. People, when they come to concerts at the park, they park over by Bonfato's and in those lots. They'd be easier to get there. It's a little shorter walk. So it has some advantages. I still like the first location, but we're willing to put it wherever, of those two locations, wherever people think it should go. It's all in the floodplain, Doug.
I don't think it is over by the Big Spring.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
the flood, oh yeah, the floodplain.
I think that the area you're considering floods often. That low area, is that something you gave some thought to?
Yes.
Okay.
And in fact, our architect said that we would build it up on pilings. So, I mean, it will be lifted and it will have a screen that would be swept away if in fact there was some horrendous floods, so it wouldn't back the water up. So yeah, that would be part of what we would do in the design, but we're not going to, I think we've already spent, I don't know, $25,000 on architectural renderings. We can't keep doing that, so until we get a go-ahead. But that was something that we looked at. Yeah, as it was, the original location had to be built up a little bit because of the floodplain.
And that doesn't have any concern getting power to the stage?
I don't think there would be. There's power in the park. We can always add it. I mean, it would be an additional cost if that were the case. But these are the questions that are, once we say, yeah, let's do this, then we can answer all those questions. We've always seen this project. I mean, when we first talked about it as a small group, we went out and talked to lots of different people. We visited the Kiwanis and the Lions Club, and we visited some of the local business owners, and they thought it was a good idea. So we thought we had a lot of wind at our back. And the more we thought about it, there's a lot to be added to the community by having something like this. Like I said, I walk every day. I walk through downtown Bellefonte. We need we had a momentum going, and we need to keep that going. I don't like walking through downtown Bellefonte and seeing empty storefronts. If we bring more people into town, maybe we'll attract a few more businesses. But I think the idea of bringing people into town, this is a good vehicle for it. And it's not going to cost any taxpayer money. And it's going to do great things for the artistic community. A much better facility. I think we've all been to concerts in the park. They're wonderful, but that's not a facility for music. And Tally's folks built that. They built that gazebo, and she knows it too, and they knew it, but it's beautiful. We don't want to disturb it. It's a great place to have a wedding. It's not a great place to have a concert. Anybody? Michael? Come up here. Come up here so everybody can hear you.
Hi, Hi, I'm Mike Desmond, and I'm from State College, but I was born here, and my grandfather went to the Bellefonte Academy, and I've heard a few stories. So we've got some of our volunteers here, and most of us are kind of gray-haired, and we've been working on this for a few years. I got involved because I had some time, and I had a friendship that I was with Tom Wilson. And he is mayor, outside of his position as mayor, as a community person, he was pursuing different activities that he felt would draw people to the area and serve people in the community here. You might remember he was exploring making use of the quarry over here, and he touched base with different organizations or communities that had repurposed quarries and attracted people and provided recreation. He is also involved, and many of you may have been involved as well, with exploring the rails to trails to Milesburg, which may eventually connect all the way down to Jersey Shore or wherever. But, things weren't working out, and I was walking with him. I said, well, let's talk about some low fruit. And we started talking about the park. And what I've learned, and you know this, but I'd like to just remind you, if you don't mind, I don't mean to insult anyone, because sometimes when we're up close to something, we don't always realize how beautiful or how great something is. This park has a great story. It's really a people's park. I mean, citizens partnered with Ralph and generations before him to help create this park and repurposed land that was sitting dormant, whatever. But it really is a beautiful park. When I walk here different times, I see people from State College and tourists who just drop in here. So it's working as an attraction. And we think the stage, one of the things we learned in surveying is that there's over 36 citizen or community organizations that hold events in this park during the course of the year. This doesn't happen in State College, okay? And with all the resources we have there, we have Penn State activities and all this other stuff, but for people to come to a town center, and what we saw was that the gazebo really, the interest had outgrown it. At the time the gazebo was built, you didn't have that lawn. And that lawn, something was mentioned about flooding over there. But you spent money and you got grants, and there's a great design there. It's the driest area in the park. So we're here, and we've done some work, we've spent some money. There was mention of what we've raised so far. But I need to tell you that, we went so far in fundraising, and we have people who are interested, but they aren't ready to contribute unless we have a commitment, and that's good business. And we've named our nonprofit Friends of Talleyrand Park because we've learned that all the different groups that have interest there, and speaking with many of the people here in your community, we found that it's difficult to bring everyone together to represent the park. And in talking to Ralph early on, I know he was concerned about community support, leadership, and I know your borough has. You have to have financial concerns. This will not be a liability. This will be an asset. There's the kayak museum, which I'm kind of puzzled by. I really get it, and I understand how important the stream is for people who do practice kayaking and such. And that was a great example of something that was repurposed, and it's there, but it doesn't get a lot of activity. This stage will get activity. We know there are enough partners. Anyway, I don't want to bend your ear too much. I appreciate you're all volunteers, so we don't want to waste your time. But I think we've got energy here, and we'd like to get this done. Appreciate it.
Question for somebody.
So, me or one of the others? One of our chairmen. They speak better.
Let me ask my question, and then you can give it to whoever else
Okay.
wants it. Right now, we're working between trying to drill wells and trying to set up a stage. So if the stage is putting in the stage 2 area, would both of these be able to work together?
There you go.
Well, I'll answer that in that what I want to say sort of encompasses your question. And one of the things that I'd like to point out, and I think needs to be said more, is that I think both of these projects are working for the same end. And you're working your project for the betterment of Bellefonte. We're working our project for the betterment of Bellefonte. We are and will be neighbors on these projects. We, in fact, extended an invitation to try to work together early on in this thing, and it's not too late to do that. But with a little bit of coordination and the amount of room that we have to work with in there shouldn't be any overlap. In fact, your project may not even start, and we might be finished by then. So the long and the short of it is, I think this whole thing got off on a bad foot, and I think because, and this is typical in local government and state government and so on and so forth, when you have a project and you're going to need grant money. And I think what happened was when word came out that we wanted to build this and we were going to be looking for money and looking for grant money, you guys knew that you were going to be doing the project too, and you were going to be looking for money. Well, we got a grant from DCED. No. Yeah. And you got a grant from DEP. So we both got the money we were looking for. So I think prior to, the damage was done because there were a couple people who badmouthed this pretty severely to all their friends, to all their golfing friends, and it became a contentious situation. And it doesn't need to be a contentious situation. We are working for the same goal, to make Bellefonte better. And to have this stage, which will be a stage that'll serve not only Bellefonte, but the whole county would benefit from having a first-class outdoor stage that will hold properly the bands that we have in this area. It's just another movement forward for the borough of Bellefonte. And the fact that we have all these people working for years and years without any money to do this, and we've also developed the 501c3 Friends of Talleyrand, which we hope will take some of the burden of the park off of the borough for maintenance and that kind of thing. I think it's a win-win situation. So I'd like to drop the contention, try to work together, because we're working for the same goal. So thank you for your consideration, and we do need a vote next week. So if you have questions, ask them now, because we're going to ask, we are asking for a vote next week. We would like it on the agenda, not a work session, on the agenda, so it can be voted for, because we need to know if we can move forward with this.
Tom, I believe that'll be 2 weeks.
Well, 2 weeks, sorry, yeah. Yeah, next meeting, let's just say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. We only have 1 minute remaining in our meeting.
Oh, can I have a couple? I'll try to take 1 minute. My name is Kay Custenbauer. I was born and raised here, moved to State College for my job, but my heart has been with Bellefonte forever and always will be, and that's why I've spent a lot of time. I was a professional fundraiser at Penn State for many years, and through that I have lots of contacts, and I have many people that are on my wait list. And just as an example, a couple that live in Rochester, New York, knew how passionate I was about this. They come and stay with me, and as most people, they'll give a small hostess gift, and they have for years. Last year was a little note with a check for $500 for the stage at Talleyrand, because they knew my passion. I brought them here, as I brought many donors over the years to State College, to quote my Bellefonte, to do the up and down Curtin and Lynn Street and the homes and the history. And I just feel it's such an opportunity, and I hope you give this a lot of consideration and your support, because I think it's such an asset, and this town is on its way up, and I think this is one thing that will help. And even the Bellefonte Community Band, I happened to meet with someone today, can fit on this stage and not in the rain at the little gazebo, which they can't begin to fit under. When it rained, they got under the tree and it was a mess. But anyway, I just want to be positive about something that I think will enhance this lovely town. That's my 2 cents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kay. We will adjourn for a few minutes and be back at 7:30. Welcome to the Bellefonte Borough Council Business Meeting. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Can we have a roll call, please?
Okay, Mr. Bernier. Here. Mr. Brackbill.
Here.
Ms. Cleaton, here. Ms. Dan.
Here.
Mr. Johnson. Ms. McKean is excused. Ms. Purnell.
Here.
Ms. Sedgwick.
Here.
Ms. Tosti Vasey.
I'm here.
Mr. Larson.
I'm here.
Ms. Meckley.
Here.
And Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additions to the council meeting agenda. In accordance with Act 65 of 2021, if a matter is not on the agenda, council cannot take official action on it with some exceptions. The council can act on matters relating to potential or real emergencies. Council may add a matter of agency business to its agenda through a majority vote. The council should state the reason why the action item is being added to the agenda, and council may vote to add an action item to the agenda. Is there anything? Public comment. Borough Council intends to take public comment related to the motion that is on the floor after it has been duly made and seconded. The order of comment will be public comment and then council comment, including proposed amendments by council members. If amendments are proposed to the original motion, the public will then only comment on the amendments before the final votes are taken. You must be a Bellefonte resident, nonprofit representative, business owner, or official representative of another governmental agency. Speakers shall identify themselves by name, street, and municipality if outside the Bellefonte Borough. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Under communications, these were all in your packet. The first one is a thank you letter from former resident John Brower. So it was a very nice letter to read. The next one, we have a reminder from our community group summit at 6:30 this Wednesday, at March 5th in the Oak Room or the council chambers. No council action is required. Council members are welcome to attend. FERC notice gas line compressor work to take place in Center County and other counties. Public comment / participation is due by 5 p.m. on March 6th. Council may vote to comment on the scope of work related to this project.
I'll make a motion we bring that forward so that we can talk about it and
Okay.
make a motion.
Okay. So do we have a second on that to discuss?
I'm not
second
sure
it,
what
and
you
I'll-
mean by bring it forward.
I'm going to get it off the table for wherever it's at. It said to, council may vote to comment the scope of work related to the project, so I'm making a motion to get it out onto the table so we can talk about it.
Okay, so we just need a motion and a second. Okay,
I'll go ahead and second it.
thank you. Any discussion?
Well, it looks like they want something in, by March 6th, which is this week.
It's tomorrow.
Yeah, so, and this has been going around for quite a while. I think it started maybe last year, but they were coming around and telling you what things were going to happen. And for ours, I don't have that in front of me, but I think it's more about electrical. Ralph, do you understand what that one was?
No, it's a gas compressor
Yeah.
in Spring Township. Thanks.
It might help, that compressor is up at the top of, it's on the edge of Springs Township, near the top of Mount Nittany.
So would this be something that Bellefonte would need to approach or not?
No, I think they probably just drew a circle around the compressor or notified Center County close by municipalities and let us know there's a comment period.
So I think maybe the reason they did that circle is that if there's a leakage from that compressor, and there has been a leakage in the past, the mercaptan that is associated with that gas, mercaptan is the chemical they put into gas to make it smell like rotten eggs. And it has come over, actually got in my house. I ended up with the fire department there once trying to find out if it was my house or something else, and then finally realized there was a leak in that compressor at the top of the mountain, which is why I know where it's at.
So does council want to make any comment on this before the 6th is when the final date for this is?
I'll make a motion for Bellefonte not to react to this scope of work related for this project.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. Can we do a roll call vote on that, please?
Mr. Bernier? Yes. Mr. Brackville?
Yes.
Ms. Cleaton? Yes. Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKean is excused, sorry. Mr. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick?
Yes.
Ms. Tosti Vasey?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. The Logan Fire Company banquet invitation was also in your packet. It is April the 12th. Please RSVP to Bobby Salvanish by March 31st. No council action is required. Under the consent agenda, we have the draft council meeting minutes for February 18th. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Joanne.
Second, Brackville.
Thank you, Randy. Any discussion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Bernier? Yes. Mr. Brackville?
Yes.
Ms. Cleaton? Yes. Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick?
Yes.
Ms. Tosti Vasey?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Under reports, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Just a public service announcement. I know we saw some sunshine today, and as the days get nicer, we'll have more people walking throughout our community, biking, walking their dogs. So just an announcement, just to slow down a little bit when you're driving and make sure you're aware of your surroundings. That goes for foggy mornings and rainy mornings or whatever. Be aware of the school bus stops and everything. So just a public service announcement to continue to be aware of your surroundings as you're walking and enjoying our community. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Larson.
I just wanted to report that we're halfway through the third quarter, so I'm getting closer to graduation. The Red and White has a special Valentine's Day release for the month of February. If you were interested in seeing our high school student-ran newspaper, I linked it there for you guys. It's just bahsredandwhite.com. Students also completed Apple testing to earn their seal of biliteracy. Our school does this cool thing where we can take a test in another language to prove that we can work in the language and speak it. So that was a cool opportunity. And then in addition, map testing took place this month. So that's just like a placement exam to see how well you're doing in school. For extracurriculars, again, Minithon and Student Council holding their first ever pickleball event. It was supposed to be held last month, but the weather kind of postponed it, so now it's March 15th. And then winter sports are coming to an end soon, and spring sports have started. And that's all.
Great. Thank you very much. Gina, did you want to? Yes. No.
Hi, Council. Whoa, sorry. I probably don't need a microphone, but I just wanted to come tonight because on your agenda is the motion to approve the waterfront development project. And I wanted to be here to answer any questions that may come up and just to provide a very, very brief kind of overview of a timeline for this. So as you probably are aware, the project changed last spring. The waterfront development group came, and instead of having 3 buildings, they changed the scope of the project to 2. So the one building is a hotel, the second building is a combination of the condominiums, the garage, and the commercial space. So they came to HARB in 2024 of last May to present that, and at that time HARB just asked them to kind of look at the scope of the building 2 and have it better match the historic aesthetic that they had done so well with the hotel. There was sort of some mismatch between the 2 buildings. So the group went back, they did that, then they presented in December of 2024, and the new models looked great. HARB was very impressed with the renderings. There was a little bit of confusion about the presentation itself. It had a lot of, I had some of the old designs mixed with the new designs, and so just for clarity's sake, HARB tabled that to ask for, a final cohesive design to be presented to HARB, and that then just happened last month. It was fabulous. There are some minor changes to the hotel itself, which was previously approved years ago, actually, in the original manifestation of this project. So I kind of wanted to be here just because the motion might be a little confusing. The way that the motion is to approve the project as presented, and that includes some modifications to the hotel, which would be an addition of Juliet balconies that are on 3 of the hotel entrances. The waterfront group architect has removed the second floor walkout, and then to add some corbels to there's a narrow section that faces High Street, and it was suggested to add some corbels there to match some that are in other places on the buildings as well. And then building 2, which is the garage, the condominiums, and the commercial, what was presented is meets HARB's approval and is recommended for approval. And then sort of offline, they had made some suggestions which the architect and developer were very happy with the suggestions, which was to change the color of the railings. They're all white, and they had made the suggestion to change them to black, and that it would just visually look better with the building, and then also change the window colors from white to black. So I know that motion, it's written out in the memo I provided for you, but I kind of just wanted to verbally present that to you in case it was confusing, or if you had any questions about anything related to that.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for Jean?
No, but I'd like to follow up just real quickly. I think the reason HARB asked to change them from white to black is it matches the wrought iron throughout town, whereas the white looks sort of like beachy. But I don't know that it just didn't look like it quite fit in with the ambiance of Bellefonte.
Right. Thank you, Joanne, for providing that additional information. Also, the Juliet balconies, too, were sort of a nod to, they asked for that addition, which was a nod to kind of how the Brockerhof also has that on theirs, and just that it would be aesthetically nice to have that addition to the hotel. Yeah.
Gina, did they take away the restaurant, or is it up on top of the roof there where it looks like glass?
The restaurant, there's 2. There's a restaurant on the first floor of the hotel, but then there's the rooftop experience as well. I shouldn't say there's 2. There's 1, but because there's just 1 kitchen. But you can have that rooftop experience on the rooftop, and then the main restaurant is on the first floor.
All right, thanks.
No, they did not take it away.
Both of these revisions are approved or recommended by HARB?
Yes. So this is the final design going to council.
And I believe years ago, we approved the height adjustment, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's still intact?
Yep.
Okay.
So that's all. I guess before you vote, I'll just also mention that the Planning Commission that was to take place next Monday has been rescheduled for Tuesday, March 18th at 5 p.m. in this room, and that has been advertised because it's a change. And the hard meeting for next week won't take place. I will be on vacation, but the next scheduled one is March 25th. Aside from me being on vacation, there's no projects for formal review anyway, so.
Thank you, Jean.
Yep, thank you.
I do have a question real quick.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't know if it was in here and I missed it. I apologize if
No,
it
it's
was.
okay.
Is there a projected start date then on this, once it's approved?
I don't have that date. I know that the Bellefonte Waterfront Group, then the next kind of hurdle, I guess, that they have to go through is they are going to come to Planning Commission. They have to do a lot consolidation, and then they have to finalize the land development plan, which of course has changed since there's a reduction in the building from 3 to 2. And of course that takes a few months. So I think they're hoping to start the project soon. I know that they're going after a couple of grants that they would want to get started on soon.
Any other questions for Gina? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Council.
So I will need a motion and a second to approve the revised designs of Building 1, the hotel, and Building 2, the garage, condo, and commercial of the Bellefonte Waterfront project.
So moved, Brackbill.
Thank you, Randy.
I'll second it, Purnell.
Thank you, Rita. Any other discussion? Do we have any discussion from anybody in the audience? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
Ms. Cleaton? Yes. Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson? Yes. Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick?
Yes.
Ms. Tostivasi?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Under current and old business, we have follow-up from the traffic signal discussion at the February 18th work session. We will be talking about the stamped asphalt crosswalks, accessible pedestrian signals, leading pedestrian indicators, and possible crossing at Triangle Road. I would like to have a motion and a second to have Council's Streets Committee review these matters and to bring back the recommendation to Council.
So moved.
Thank you, Joanne.
I'll second Brackbill.
Thank you, Randy. Any discussion? Any comments from the audience? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Bernier? Yes. Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
Ms. Cleaton? Yes. Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick?
Yes.
Ms. Tostivasi? Motion passes.
Yes.
Thank you. The street paving, street selections with budgeted funds. Could I have a motion and a second to have Council's Street Committee review the staff recommendations for the streets to include this year's paving project and to bring back recommendations to Council?
I'll make that motion. I'll second it then.
Thank you. Rita and Doug. Any discussion?
Was the list published to all of council of what's on the existing list? Was that the paving list as it stands right now?
I'm
Did
not
we
sure.
get that?
We sent all the options out, but let me make sure you have them for your committee meeting.
Okay, great, thanks.
Mhm.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call vote, please? Sorry.
Mr. Bernier? Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton? Yes. Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick?
Yes.
Ms. Tasdi-Vasey?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business, a Borough staff member submitted an application for appointment to the Shade Tree Commission. Borough Solicitor Jeff Stover's opinion, based on the position and facts, a conflict of interest does not exist. Council may vote to approve Mr. Jason Ostrowski to the Shade Tree Commission to fill the current vacancy for the remainder of the term.
I'll
Could
make
I-
that motion, Brackbill.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Doug. Is there any discussion on that?
Just that I'm pleased that that, first of all, that there is no conflict of interest, and secondly, that he is passionate enough about the town that he asked to volunteer for this at no pay.
Yes, I agree, Joanne, thank you. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Bernier? Yes. Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton? Yes. Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick?
Yes.
Ms. Tasdi-Vasey?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We have an RFP for grant writing services, and it has been issued. Proposals are due on Friday, March 14th. No council action is requested. We have a signed agreement contract for Section 902 Municipal Recycle Program Development and Implementation Grant received by the borough. We were awarded $200,000 for purchase of equipment that can begin. I asked Julie if she would give us a little more information on that, please.
Good evening, Council. I'm not sure what exactly you had in mind, but I would want to tell you about the equipment that we plan to purchase. We plan to purchase a compost mulch topsoil screener to help with the bagging process. This would be able to, as I said, screen topsoil, so that sometimes we purchase that, so we could potentially do that. And then also it will screen mulch, and we have the correct screens so that we can do filter socks for erosion and sediment control. And the screener would look something like that, if you can see. Hopefully you can see from that, but. And the other equipment that the other items that we were planning to purchase was also a half-round cover that would fit onto Jersey barriers. We were going to do 2 of those so that we can put our compost equipment under it, and also the finished compost. So we'll be able to bag without, we had difficulty bagging. The compost was so wet, so this will solve that problem. And then the third item that we were going to purchase with that was additional paving. So we would pave under the finished compost areas and under the bagging area. Residents had commented that it was very wet there, that when they went in to try to get some of that, they were getting, their vehicles were having a hard time getting in and out. So that will solve that problem. Also add some additional paving to the pad if our funds allow. So, did you have
Thank you. Does anybody have questions for Julie?
One question. That shelter that you showed, how resistant is it to wind?
That is a good question. I looked into that. They secure pretty well there. I'm not sure the total lifespan of them. I think they were saying 10, 15 years or so. It is windy there, but I think we can secure it adequately. That's what I've been told when I investigated it. So,
Okay.
Good
Just
question.
don't want that blowing around the neighborhood.
I agree. We were having tarp issues, so this is going to be much better than that. So, any other questions?
Anyone else? Thank you, Julie. Settlement agreement between the U.S. Department of Justice and Bellefonte Borough. All deadlines for implementation of services, ADA training, and documentation have been met by the Borough ADA Coordinator within timeframes and deadlines set forth in the settlement. The borough remains under the settlement until February 20th of 2026. ADA training and improvements to borough services will be ongoing as outlined in Title II. No council action is required. Next order of business, the approval of ordinance number 03-2025-01, amendment to Chapter 108, Police Department. Could I have a motion and a second to approve this ordinance?
So moved.
Thank you, Joanne.
I'll second Bracknell.
Thank you. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from council? Discussion? Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill?
Yes.
Ms. Cleaton? Yes. Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick?
Yes.
Ms. Tosti-Vasey?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Under new business, Bellefonte Waterfront Property National Pollutant Discharge Elimination Systems Permit. The owner was notified the staff that they had inadvertently left their NPDES permit expire. Riparian zone regulations near waterways had changed after the permit was originally issued. The staff is working with their engineers and Pennsylvania Department DEP on a new permit application that may involve Borough Authority property downstream of the waterfront property. This is for information only. Did you want to add anything to that?
The Borough Authority is going to look at this same issue tomorrow night at their regular meeting. This is new to them as well. So the Borough Authority has about an 8-acre parcel that does have some wetlands on it that may be able to be used. But it is what has happened is the regulations have changed since the first NPDES permit was issued. The only thing I would add, listening to the work session discussion of the stage, the stage near the stream would have the same issue being so close to the stream. This riparian zone, I think, is about 100 or 150 feet from the water's edge. That they consider you have to make up land for if you're going to develop that close to the water. So it's something I would recommend that the stage committee look into before they go too much further with that number 2 option. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Joanne?
Yeah, so going back to the water development thing, this is a concern I've had for a while. They have the roadway along Dunlop Street. They're going to put completely back in, but they're also planning on putting parking spaces right up against the mill race. Do we know if that will be affected with this riparian plan?
That was clarified. The mill race is not a natural waterway or waters of the Commonwealth. And they probably 5 years ago got a letter from DEP stating it's not an issue because of, it's not a natural waterway. And that was actually discussed recently, and the proof was sent to DEP to show them that they had already decided on it. So it's not an issue at this time, but any development within the 150 feet, I think, and don't quote me on that measurement, but whatever it is under the law, they got to make up for. And I'm guessing it's approximately 3 to 4 acres, because the full development is about 3 to 4 acres.
Thank you.
Anything else on that? Thank you. There are discussions regarding the bike path walkway to and from the former Ciro complex in Spring Township to Talleyrand Park. Discussions are underway primarily through the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau and stakeholders. Again, no council action is requested. Do you have any other information on that?
I really don't. They were just looking at 2 options, these stakeholders, as mentioned there. They looked at using Valentine Hill Road, and there's a small bridge over Logan Branch right at the end, I guess it would be the north end of the Cyril complex. They looked at that route. They also looked at going along the railroad track, which is owned by CEDACOG Joint Rail Authority. You know, I think they're going to open up discussions about that with CEDACOG Joint Rail, but there's a lot of issues, safety issues that have to be addressed, but it's really very preliminary in the discussions at this point in time. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is the approval of resolution number 0303-2025-01, amending the police department's updated policies, vehicle pursuits 4.2.1, objective risk factors and vehicle pursuits 4.2.1.1, pursuit decision-making matrix 4.2.1.2. Could I have a motion and a second to approve this resolution?
I'll make that motion, Brackville.
Thank you, Randy.
I'll second it, Clayton.
Thank you, Debbie. Do we have any discussion on this? Chief, did you want to weigh in on this at all? Okay, great, thank you. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Bernier?
Yes.
Mr. Brackville?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton? Yes. Ms. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Purnell?
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick?
Yes.
Ms. Tosti-Vasey?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We have public comment regarding issues not on the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Come right up here. If you can identify yourself.
Yes, Deborah Berger. I am the Bellefonte Borough tax collector, and that's what I am here to talk with you about. The beloved tax bills supposedly were mailed out last Friday. I don't know if any of you received them.
Yep.
Okay, I figured you had because my phone was blowing up from emails from other tax collectors in the county. So that's what I tried to get here before the meeting, to be able to kind of ward off some of the problems that the other tax collectors are having. First of all, they look different. You can see that. There's a lot of information inside that tax bill. You just have to break it down, take your time, read what is in there before you send your check in. Because and we have had this in the past too, where people will send in a face payment when it was discount payment. That is going to be more difficult with this new system to be able to modify that. So please take your time and read it. Make sure that you're paying the correct amount. Second of all, with escrows, that's where the other tax collectors are having a problem. The one woman, she was fielding 20 phone calls because of escrows. We are not mailing out the bills. We do not have copies of everybody's bill. We do not know who your escrow company is. So you will need to make copies of your bill and mail it to your escrow company. That being said, some of the bigger escrow companies, it's called CoreLogic or Loretta, they are getting them electronically from the county. We don't have a list of what they're getting from the assessment office, so we don't know. So please, everybody out in the borough, if you have an escrow, you need to make a copy and mail it to your company. I don't have copies of the bills anymore like I did in the past to be able to do it. So just trying to ward off a lot of problems.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions for?
I just wanted to say on my tax form, it said that it was forwarded to my escrow company. So.
Correct. And they were putting that on every bill just to help even the people that don't have an escrow got that marked on their bill.
Okay, so that's not necessarily true then, is what you're saying?
I can't verify it.
Okay.
Because I didn't do it.
Right. Okay.
The assessment office did it, that's fine, but I'm an A personality. And if I don't do it, I'm not marking it on the bill. So I had nothing to do with what was on those.
Gotcha, thank you.
Anybody else? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
this seems to be very, very important for both our businesses and our residents. Is there some way that you and Ralph could work together to create some kind of short statement to put in both the newsletter and on our website?
They're already there.
Already there. Sorry, we can add this clip, we're indexed through CNET. We can put this blurb on the website, but we do have, Debbie has an article in her newsletter, so
Yep.
that's good.
We tried to get it out there everywhere possibly beforehand, showing pictures of it, and I know that Barb has put it onto her Facebook page. We've shared it everywhere we possibly could.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Okay, council members, for the good of the order, Mr. Bernier, we'll start with you. Our PSAB convention is coming up the beginning of June. If you go to their website, boroughs.org, they do have their legislative priorities for this year listed, and you may find some of them interesting. A lot of them would be very helpful to our borough. And we will be talking about any other priorities that we would like them to consider next month in our regular council meeting.
I'd like to thank Deb Berger for coming in. My comment for the good of the order was going to be about the new tax bills, because I did get mine, and even though it says official tax bill across the front, it still looks like junk mail. You need to open it and read it.
I have nothing.
I want to follow up on what Barb, because that was on my agenda too. I think that that should be on our next work session, because the deadline to send in proposed resolutions is April 2nd. So if we wait until next month, then we'll be too late. So, and the other thing is that the Parks and Rec and Environmental Committee, as well as the Ordinance Ad Hoc Committee, will be meeting on the second Thursday of each month except for July. The Environmental and Parks Committee meeting will start at 3:30 p.m., immediately followed by the Ordinance Ad Hoc Committee in the Oak Room here in the Borough Inn, because the people that are on one are also on the other.
I just wanted to point out for anyone who's not aware that we're coming up on primary season here in the county, and there are a number of countywide precinct and municipality positions that are open. And if anybody's interested in running for office or thinking about it, deadlines are going to be coming up soon. The deadlines for petitions to be turned in is March 11th. And anyone interested in running for office needs to go to the Willow Bank building and pick up a packet.
Great, thank you. I do have a couple of forms here that will need signed if everybody just wants to stick around for a few minutes. Other than that, can I have a motion and a second to adjourn, please? Okay, thank you.
Second,
All in favor? Thank you. We will now have an executive session on personnel matters.